What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Going the Distance podcast presented by ImmaculateSports.com. Twitter's at ImacSports.
Instagram is also at MX Sports.
TikTok, YouTube, Immaculate Sports. It's episode 276 and such a big week because it's Black Tuesday, apparently. Black Monday, of course, yesterday. Most of the coaches got fired. Today, John Harbaugh is fired from the Ravens. Next week, we will talk a lot more about that kind of stuff. This week, we're making picks because we're down to the final four in college football and the final 14 in the NFL.
Yeah, probably a good week to hold off on talking about all this coaching stuff because sometimes we do get stragglers like this throughout the week. And there's no point in us doing predictions and stuff now if somebody gets fired tomorrow. So we'll hold off on doing that. Next week, we'll probably do head coach predictions, maybe rankings for the openings. Who knows there? But this week, it's all about the playoffs, college, and NFL, because we have two big college games this week, Thursday and Friday, which sets us up perfectly for the Saturday, Sunday, Monday slate of NFL games that we have. We'll do power rankings and a full playoff bracket prediction for the NFL. But before that, we got some openers and some pretty cool stuff, I guess you could say, for me and Skylar's teams. Even though you got second, I'll let you go first here.
Okay. The Jet season is finally over, man. 3-14, and this was the most pathetic roster I've seen the Jets throw out there in my lifetime, especially after the trade deadline with their two captains getting traded. The positive, though, is that we were somehow able to end up with the second pick in a complete tank-off kind of season where we were projected anywhere from 5 to 10. They end up with number 2, which is okay. And one of the kids I was coaching last night told me that Brady Cook cooked himself and the Jet season, which was hilarious, but he's not wrong, unfortunately. Aaron Glenn is going to be staying on for another year. That's not surprising. This was obviously a tank job, at least in the last 8 weeks of the season. Now we hope that Dante Moore does actually declare. And I don't want to hear any BS about the Jets can't draft him because they're going to ruin him. Come on, guys. Like, I know we've been terrible for 10 years, but you want us to just roll over and die and not even try? I don't want to hear that shit. All right. If Dante Moore comes out, they will probably take him at 2.
Yeah. Jets picking second. We know who's picking first, too. It's the Raiders. Before they even played on Sunday, they secured the first overall pick, which made the game against Kansas City a whole lot less stressful. And maybe actually be able to root for a Raiders win. Ended up getting the win against Kansas City. Whether it's, Shane Buechele and Chris Oladoke, I don't care. Beating Kansas City is pretty cool. We had Aiden O'Connell and Kenny Pickett playing quarterback, so it's not like the quarterbacks on our side were that much better. But regardless, 14-12 victory. Daniel Carlson, big game. He had 4 field goals in this one, plus a safety. That's how the Raiders get to 14. Tyree Wilson, probably his best game in his career. Couple of sacks, a forced fumble. One of the sacks was a safety as well, too. So, Tyree Wilson, former top pick. Hopefully he starts coming along as we get into year 4 next year, which will be crazy already. But regardless, Raiders win. The writing was on the wall for Pete Carroll, though. He ends up getting fired Monday morning. And obviously from there, a bunch of rumors flow in of who's going to be the next possible head coach. I'll give a little light to this now because I don't want to wait a whole another week to do this just for the Raiders because we know this job is opening. But out of I think it's 7 teams now that are open, I would say that the Raiders job is probably the most attractive. I guess maybe Baltimore is now up there as well too because you have a ready-to-go playoff roster. You have an MVP-level quarterback. So maybe that is number 1. But outside of the ready-to-go team, the Raiders are probably the most hands-on rebuild that you can have. A number 1 pick, likely Fernando Mendoza. You have 2 top 10 or top tier offensive targets in Ashton Jeanty and Brock Bowers. And you have a defense that isn't really have a ton on it, but you have $100 million plus in cap space. So you have the ability to do whatever you want there, which leads me into head coaching candidates. 3 guys that I'd say I'm interested in. I'd say the top 2 are a little bit above the third guy, but the number 1 guy I want is Brian Flores, DC from Minnesota. There's been rumors about this. Going back the last couple of weeks, ever since there was rumblings of Pete Carroll getting fired and Tom Brady wants to install the Patriot way, hand quotes you can't see obviously because we're only audio, but install the Patriot way into the Raiders because Brian Flores, former assistant in New England. I would love to get Brian Flores aboard. Get Brian Dable as OC would be rumored to be the package there with them. Brian Flores' defenses have not played around in these last few years, really ever, whenever he's been a head coach or a DC in the league. They're always coming after you. They blitz a ton. They make the quarterback super uncomfortable. And while you're probably going against quarterbacks in the AFC West that are used to being blitzed and being put into uncomfortable spots with Mahomes, Bo Nix, and Justin Herbert, really, you don't see trap games with Brian Flores' teams. They go out and beat the rookie quarterback. They go out and beat the shitty quarterback. And if you get Brian Flores in the building, you add some pieces with the 100 mil, I think you got a pretty good squad. And then you give Brian Dable, who's probably going to have at least a couple years at OC before he gets even another head coaching interview. He gets runway with his staff and his players and gets to do what he wants to do there. And we even seen him be a successful offensive coordinator in the past as well over in Buffalo. Second option is, I guess, the golden prodigy of this head coaching class that really doesn't have one, Clint Kubiak. Raiders have already put it in I don't know if it's how they do it, but put in something for him to get interviewed this coming week, which is cool. Obviously, you can't hire him until Seattle gets eliminated. So for his case, hopefully they don't hire him until February. But he's another guy. And the last one, Jesse Minter. It's with Spytech and Tom Brady being Michigan guys. You kind of have an obvious connection there. Obviously, you would assume there's some sort of familiarity between them. It's not just a blank space talking between one another. They already have a rapport, you'd imagine. So that's the third guy. Harbaugh, I would like to stay away from. It seems like just another Pete Carroll, Josh McDaniels situation. But those are my three candidates. Pledge it out more next week once we get into it. I know this was a bit of a rant, but obviously a bit necessary in this time of what's going on.
Definitely some bigger names than last season.
Yeah, outside of Ben Johnson.
Yeah.
Anyways, moving on to player, defensive player, and rookie of the week. Obviously, a ton of big games in Week 18. Who did you choose for player of the week?
I wanted to stick to the games that really mattered a lot compared to the rest of the group of games. So I went with Aaron Rodgers. Yeah, they won because of Tyler Loop's missed kick, but that Steelers team is just not very good without Aaron Rodgers out there. And things were looking very grim for Pittsburgh in the first half. Rodgers had two massive drives back-to-back in the fourth where he was looking like Perk Rodgers once again, throwing to some questionable weapons. And hey, they got the win.
Yeah, I think you can make a case for a bunch of different people here. Stafford, Drake May had a good game. Even Mitch Trubisky had a crazy game, but that game did not mean anything. So I did go with Aaron Rodgers as well, too. 294, a touchdown, and 20 rushing yards on a single attempt there was pretty cool. More rushing yards than Lamar Jackson in the game. But yeah, Perk Rodgers, full effect here. His top target in this game, I don't know if it was by yardage, but Kenneth Gainwell was really his best target in this game. And that's no shot on Kenneth Gainwell. It's just a shot on Pittsburgh's offense and how they have decided to go about getting Aaron Rodgers weapons. But regardless, he played great with them, did what they needed to do. And I know because of Tyler Loop that they're playing on Monday now. But if it wasn't for Aaron Rodgers, they wouldn't be playing on Monday regardless. So A-Rod, player of the week. How about defensive player of the week?
I actually did give an honorable mention to your guy, Tyree Wilson. I didn't see much of that game because you guys basically had the number one seed locked up. But I did see his big sack that was a safety, like you said, and that kind of gave you guys the opportunity to win. But I think the right thing to do here is to finish off the weekly awards with Myles Garrett. He breaks the sack record. He gets to 23 and yeah, one sack only in this game, once again. But those guys were terrorizing Joe Burrow the entire game. So it's like you said last week, it's the idea of Myles Garrett coming right behind you. That is why he's the player of the week for me, defensive.
Yeah, Myles Garrett's going to get it for me as well, too. Thought about throwing a shout out to TJ Watt, who had an interception, always seems to have find a way to get the ball in his hands in the big moments, and he did against Lamar Jackson and the Ravens and set up some points for that Pittsburgh offense. But Myles Garrett breaking the all-time record for sacks, or not all-time, but single-season record for sacks is pretty special. I know some people are going to say, well, Burrow kind of did take a fall for him if you look at the play, but he kind of slipped. Wasn't really going to go anywhere. If he did get past that one guy, he was just going to run into another defensive lineman. So shout out Myles Garrett. Obviously, pretty generational talent, and to see it go from talent into superstardom into Hall of Famer now is pretty cool. So Myles Garrett, Defense Player of the Week for me. And the Rookie of the Week.
Riley Leonard looked pretty good in his first start, but I'm going to go with Jackson Dart. He had 230 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, and, it was against the Cowboys defense and their backups for half of the game, who were somehow the worst defensive unit in the entire league this year, despite winning a good amount of games for what they were expected to do. But the bar has been set very low with the rookie quarterbacks this year, so I'll take another game where Dart gets the win and he doesn't turn it over.
Yeah. Cam Ward was on pace before he got hurt, had a rushing touchdown, looked great in his one drive that he had. Riley Leonard, like you mentioned, really good first start against a tough Texans defense. I think he definitely showed stuff that was good enough to feel like okay if you're Indianapolis to have to start him week 1 if Danny Dimes isn't ready by the time that the season starts. That is if they re-sign Daniel Jones. But regardless, Jackson Dart for me as well too. 22 for 32, 230, 2 touchdowns, and 32 rushing yards. A lot of 2s and 3s in that stat line. The touchdown pass that he threw, kind of off, schedule, just flip like he's a second baseman trying to turn a double play. It ends up being taken. I think Daniel Bellinger takes it like 35 yards into a touchdown. I know that play really wasn't a bunch of Jackson Dart, but still great play to get out of the pocket and make do what you can. And Jackson Dart has really been about that this entire year. Gets a win, beats the Cowboys, and gets the 5th overall pick for the Giants. So
thank you.
There's that. Moving on, we have college football semifinals coming up on Thursday and Friday, like I mentioned earlier. We got to do predictions for that game. We can do predictions for this round, and then next week we'll be able to do predictions for the final, even though it'll be 6 days away at that point, which will kind of be sucky. But regardless, just 2 games to predict here. The first one, Thursday nights. It is the Verbo Fiesta Bowl in Glendale, Arizona. Miami versus Ole Miss. 2 teams that you did not expect to be here in the semifinals. How do you think this one plays out between Trinidad Chambliss and Ole Miss versus Carson Beck and the Miami Hurricanes?
The vibes could not be any higher for both of these programs right now. Miami might have the best defense in the nation after whooping Ohio State. The Rebels just dropped 39 points on Georgia. That's their biggest win since 1962. So this is going to be a good one. And a really tough one to pick, too, because I think Miami has the better roster, but Ole Miss has been playing with this entirely new level of confidence under Pete Golding with Lane Kiffin out of there. Miami is about a 3-point favorite. They're coming off a massive statement against the Buckeyes here. Trinidad Chambliss should make this one very interesting. Once again, if everything holds up in court, he'll be coming back too, which is crazy. But I got the Hurricanes winning this one. 23-20, their style of game, defensive. Carson Beck just needs to not fuck this one up because Miami has looked very unstoppable over the last 6 weeks or so.
Yeah, I have a similar feel. I definitely think Miami's going to dictate this football game. As we saw in the Ole Miss Georgia game, what Trinidad Chambliss was good at was those off-schedule, make a play type of plays that usually win or lose you a football game. And I think Miami's pass rush with Akeem Messidor and Ruben Bain Jr. are not going to allow that to happen. It's too tough. Miami's offense, isn't the greatest, but I think Mark Fletcher, what he's shown in the 2 games so far in the playoffs has been good enough, and Carson Beck's been good enough as well, too, to be able to put up points against Ole Miss. Obviously, I don't know how much Carson Beck's previous time at Georgia will have some effect in this game against going against Ole Miss, maybe some familiar schemes and stuff that he's seen already, but I give the edge to Miami here. I don't think it's going to be a super high-scoring game, but Miami dictates it and wins probably 3 to 7 points, I think is fair. Not 3 to 7 final score, but by
Yes.
3 to 7 points. Friday is the game, though, that everybody's kind of got circled. Oregon versus Indiana. We've already seen these two teams play. It's the only loss on Oregon's record. It's the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl in Atlanta, Georgia, at the Mercedes-Benz Dome. Mercedes-Benz Stadium. I guess it's not a dome technically, but potential number 1 pick, potential number 2 pick. I guess we could just call this game Jets versus Raiders. So how do you have this one playing out between Fernando Mendoza and Dante Moore?
Yeah, like you said, this is a rematch of one of the best games of the entire season. And also, like you said, Dante Moore, Mendoza, this could be pick 1 and 2. We don't get this very often. So I'm just going to soak it in. I don't have the deepest analogy here, but if you remember, I had picked Oregon to win this matchup when we did it the first round, because Oregon was definitely trending upwards heading into the playoff. But after watching the Rose Bowl domination from the Hoosiers, I feel like I'd be crazy not to switch to Indiana here. Mendoza was great. The defense beat the shit out of Ty Simpson, so bad that he had to come out of the game early. So I just don't think that Oregon is on the same level of physicality. I'm going to take Indiana 31-27, and maybe even uglier than that, but I'm hoping it is a very good game that Dante Moore can battle back, because he's going to have some adversity against that defense.
Yeah, the first time that these two teams played, it wasn't like a QB showdown. Each QB both threw a pick. Dante Moore threw multiple. Fernando Mendoza had 215 passing yards, and that led the game in passing yards. Dante Moore only had 186. Still the game 30-20 Oregon. I do think we see better QB play. I think both these guys have even matured in the 6 games that they've played since. But like you said, Fernando Mendoza in the Rose Bowl, he's about as headstrong as a quarterback that we've seen play at the college level in a long time. You can see it in his interviews. You can see it in the way that he dissects defenses. He has, 5 different things that he can do each play. And his thought process in going through it has been really good. Obviously, these two teams have seen each other, as already mentioned. I do think that helps the offenses a bit more. I think the defenses are kind of, I won't say vanilla, but you're not going to see anything too crazy from these defenses. Although I do give the edge to Indiana there. So offenses kind of scratch, better playmakers, I'd say, on the Oregon side, but better quarterback on Indiana side. So I'll go Indiana, high scoring game by 7 to 10 points, I'd say.
Okay.
But I hope both teams get into the 30s, because we deserve a type of game. We haven't had, I guess the Georgia Ole Miss game was great, but we need a 41-43 type game that we got from Justin Fields and the boys back in the late 2010s.
Yeah.
So moving on, we have power rankings to do for the 14 teams that are in the playoffs. No more 15, no more 16, just the 14 teams that are in. So we'll start off number 14, the Carolina Panthers.
Nobody in their right mind should be picking Carolina this week. They lost the biggest game of the year and get in as a technicality. So that's all you need to know about Carolina right now. And the technicality, by the way, was the Jets beating Atlanta, which is hilarious. At least we can see what Bryce Young has for us on the big stage, but I don't have very high expectations.
Yeah. They play the Rams, game that they've actually already beaten the Rams, of course, which is kind of crazy. The spread is like 10.5, and I think that's for good reason. There's so many. I'm not supposed to get into predictions here, so I'll hold off on this stuff. I'll wait until we actually get into predictions. But Carolina, I think, is very clearly the worst team in the playoffs, and there's no shot to Bryce Young, but he probably is the worst quarterback right now out of these 14 teams. Maybe you can make a case for. I don't know. I don't think you can make a case for anybody. Bryce Young's probably the worst quarterback in this these playoffs. Run game has been lacking for Carolina recently in these last 5 to 6 games. And outside of Teratoa McMillan, or Tetaroa, not Teratoa, who's he going to throw to? Like, it's not. He doesn't have another good target. Doesn't have. I know Tommy Tremble has some big catches against Tampa Bay and a big touchdown, but I don't trust them against Los Angeles. I think you need a lot of things to go your way, and I don't think that can happen twice. So Carolina, number 14. Ironically, the same spot that I had them in our last rankings.
Okay.
Number 13, Pittsburgh Steelers.
Absolutely. Somehow they did it. And the Steelers are hosting a playoff game with Aaron Rodgers. DK Metcalf, going to be a major factor if they want to do anything here, but it's just a lot to ask for. So that's why they're here.
Yeah, Pittsburgh, number 13 for me as well, too. They actually don't move at all. Either are the same spot that had them in our last rankings. I think getting DK Metcalf back could actually really free up Aaron Rodgers and be able to, take some of the edge off of what he's been having to deal with recently. Maybe help the run game as well, too, as there might be some double teams that are throwing DK's way from Houston. But the Pittsburgh defense isn't what it was 10 years ago at this point, even though it has a lot of the same people. It feels like overall, it's not a team that's going to win the Super Bowl. And that's why they're below everybody in the AFC, and they are at number 13 for me. Number 12.
I am going to go with the Green Bay Packers at 12. I'm not going to give them a 0% chance here. I've seen some people picking them to beat Chicago, but we don't even know if Jordan Love can throw a football right now. And the loss of Micah Parsons, too, is heavily felt on the defense. I just don't think it's their year.
Yeah. Number 12 for me, we differ here, is where I have the Los Angeles Chargers. They moved down 2 spots in my rankings, and it's because of the offensive line. It's good to beat regular season teams, beat the Cowboys, beat the Raiders, but so many good teams that you're playing in the playoffs have great defensive lines. And I know they actually get a pretty good matchup here in terms of that with the New England Patriots, and we'll get into that game in a little bit. But not having an offensive line that's healthy and seeing how it's played against really good defenses like the Jags or even the Texans this past couple of weeks, it did not work out well. Everything was tough to get on offense, and I don't think their defense, while it is a good group, outweighs the difficulties that they're going to have to deal with on the offensive side. So the Chargers moved down 2 spots, number 12 for me, second lowest AFC team. Number 11.
Number 11 is where I got the Chargers. They just tend to get destroyed when they're a wild card team historically, like this season, getting the 7 instead of the 5. I would love to see Herbert take it over, but like you said, that offensive line is more likely to get him killed than otherwise.
Number 11 is where I have the Green Bay Packers, so we have the same 4 teams in the bottom 4 rankings. They move up 1 spot in my rankings, and I'm not as concerned about the running or the quarterback position. I just showed my hand there. I'm not as concerned about the quarterback position because I do believe Malik Willis is a serviceable potential starter in this league, and everything that he's shown to us in his last 2 to 3 years of when he's on the field playing meaningful moments, he's been really good. So I don't really think I'm too worried about that. If he goes in, I'm worried about the run game. Josh Jacobs has been questionable, missing practices, getting 2 carries in complete football games. I don't know if he's healthy. And if he's not healthy, that changes things a ton. Emmanuel Wilson had a carry for negative 19 yards last week, which was pretty crazy. And if you have a run game that can't move the ball and you're playing with a wide receiver core that's also banged up as well too, you don't have your top target in Tucker Kraft, you don't have your best defensive player in Michael Parsons, you're in a shitload of trouble, and you're the 7 seed. You're going to be playing in road games the entire way through. So Green Bay, I don't believe in them. They move up 1 spot, but it doesn't really do much. Number 11 for me. Number 10.
Number 10, I have San Francisco. And I think they've been number 10 for me for like 2 months straight now. They're just so banged up, man. They couldn't run the ball against Seattle, and that's pretty much their entire identity. Maybe they can keep pulling out more magic on the road here, but I'm definitely not thinking Super Bowl anymore with the amount of guys they're going to be missing in these upcoming games.
Yeah, the injuries are rough for San Francisco, and that's why they're number 10 for me as well, too. They moved down 5 spots in my rankings, which is a bit of a jump. But really that game against Seattle showed me what I need to see. And that's the team that you're going to have to beat if you are playing or planning to go to the Super Bowl. They have a tough draw, first matchup against Philly as well, too. I just don't think they can run the ball consistently right now with the offensive line injuries. Trent Williams, we know, did not play his last game on Saturday. He's questionable for going into Sunday's matchup against the Eagles. Christian McCaffrey has had some good games, but as you see, like yard per carry wise, he's struggled throughout the year. And I know Brock Purdy's been great down the stretch, but their defense isn't doing them any favors either. I know we've heard if they get to I think it's the NFC Championship game, maybe Fred Warner could come back. But there's a long ways to go till then. And I don't think they can make it if they don't have him back now, which is not going to happen. So the Niners move down 5 spots for me to the number 10 spot. Number 9.
At number 9, I have Philadelphia right next to the team they're playing, the Niners. And this is another team, I don't think I've moved them since November because it's just been such a weird season. So another team, I wouldn't be surprised if this just isn't the year for them. Maybe a Super Bowl hangover, but it is all of the same guys. They're coming back. They have so much experience. They have to be above San Francisco because they beat them every time they've seen them since Andy Reid was coaching in Philly.
Philly's my number 9 team as well, too. They move up 2 spots for me. You can look back to that Bills win just a couple games ago and say, maybe they should be a lot higher than this. They went into Buffalo, went to go beat the Bills, did a tough environment game. But then there's the counter argument of how actually good is Buffalo when you stack them up against these really good teams. Their defense isn't good. Outside of James Cook, they don't really have another weapon on offense, but I'll get to Buffalo when we get to talk about Buffalo. Regardless, the issues on Philly's offense this season has been undeniable. And as Stephen A. Smith actually said this morning on First Take, I thought was a pretty good point. If you can't run the football against the Niners, or say you beat the Niners, you get into the next game, what the fuck is Kevin Patullo going to draw up that, makes you feel confident in winning a football game? Just streaks to A.J. Brown and slants to Devonta Smith. Maybe it works, but they don't have that creativity on offense to where if you get stuffed, you get stuck into a rough spot to get around it. Previous years, they did Kellen Moore, Shane Steichen. Like, the guys that they had before are great for that, but Kevin Patullo just can't do it. So Philly up 2 spots in my rankings, but I'm not super confident in them being a team that's going to win the Super Bowl. Number 8.
At number 8, I got the Chicago Bears. It's a great story. I'm happy that they got the 2 seed, but this is a defense that has just been absolutely shredded down the stretch. And I wouldn't feel right picking them over the AFC teams I have up here that I have not mentioned yet in like a potential Super Bowl matchup. So that's why I've dropped the Bears down in a playoff power ranking, even though they were way up there on our regular season rankings.
Number 8, a bit of a shocker here. Probably the lowest the top 1 seed has ever been slated. The Denver Broncos moved down 2 spots and are my number 8 team. It's because of the run game, man. I don't think they have the ability to be up. Well, first off, I'll start on the defense. The defense is great, don't get me wrong, but you're going against offenses in the playoffs that can score on your defense. We saw the Jags put up 34 points against them, 3-4 weeks ago at this point. Teams are going to score. And if you're in a spot where it's 8 minutes left, you're up by 3, and you need to run the football, RJ Harvey and Caleb McLaughlin are not going to get the job done. Not Caleb McLaughlin, that's the actor. Maybe that is Caleb McLaughlin. Maybe they're both Caleb McLaughlin. But regardless, they're not going to get the job done with that. And if passing for Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase doesn't work down the stretch, it's not going to work for Bo Nix and Troy Franklin and Cortland Sutton. So Denver, I don't believe, has a real chance to win the Super Bowl unless they get a lot of things to go their way. I believe they are still, one of the worst 1 seeds that we've seen and one of the worst 14-3 teams that we've seen. If they, draw Houston or Jacksonville or whoever it may be in that first round outside of the Chargers, I think they're in real shit luck. So Denver Broncos, number 8 for me. Number 7.
All right, number 7, I got the Buffalo Bills. If you have Josh Allen, you're always going to have a chance. But does he have enough weapons around him to keep up with some of the top teams? I have some of the same issues that you have with Denver, with Buffalo this year. As a fan of a team that plays them twice, I've seen them a lot. My ranking suggests here that they don't have enough to get to the Super Bowl. So I put them right in the middle.
Number 7 for me is where I slot the Houston Texans, and they're pretty much just a slightly better version of the Denver Broncos. I don't think C.J. Stroud and Bo Nix are that far apart. I don't think their defenses are that far apart. I don't think their weapons are crazily far apart either. I just think the run game with Woody Marks, even Jawar Jordan, Nick Chubb, I know he's been hurt, but I trust that run game a whole lot more than I trust R.J. Harvey right now. And that's the sole reason why they are ahead of the Denver Broncos, even though the The Broncos beat them earlier in the season. That was when J.K. Dobbins was healthy, and I trusted the run game a lot more of J.K. Dobbins. So Houston does not move in my rankings at all, but they do jump ahead of the Denver Broncos. Number 6.
All right, number 6 is where I got the Houston Texans. 9 wins in a row. They split with Jacksonville this year, and they're a very dangerous wildcard team. But the idea of this young of a team playing all of their playoff games on the road, potentially, we'll get to that later, it really scares me because this is a team that kind of no-shows on offense every other week.
Number 6 is where I put the Buffalo Bills. They move up 2 spots in my rankings. They are the team that is really the wild card in this, metaphor aside, because they actually are a wild card team. But they are the wild card, I'd say, in the AFC and in the entire NFL playoffs because they can lose to anybody, but they can also beat anybody. They have the run game to do it. They have the MVP level quarterback, but they also have no weapons on offense. And they also have a terrible defense that will give up a ton of points. This first game against Jacksonville, I think, is going to be a great one. We'll get into predictions for that in a little bit. But Buffalo, outside of, playing hero ball with Josh Allen, it's going to be really tough for them to do. But since you have Josh Allen and since you have the rushing leader in James Cook that gets the rushing crown this year, I put them higher than a lot of these other teams. So Buffalo, number 6, up 2 spots in my rankings. Number 5 into the top 5 here.
All right, starting up the top 5, I got the 1 seed, the Denver Broncos. Great stuff from Denver all season, but I don't know if they can run the ball either. Luckily for them, they have home field advantage in a very, very tough place to play. They're 8-1 there this season, so that's why they're in the top 5, but I definitely have those same worries about Denver.
Moving up 4 spots despite back-to-back losses is where I put the Chicago Bears. These past 2 games have been rough. Don't get me wrong. 2 losses is tough, but they really showed me a lot about Caleb Williams and his ability to go get you to win football games and get you into good spots and drives. I know he didn't have, the final play against Detroit or the final play against the Niners that would have, put the Bears in, top 3 pretty much everywhere. But he got the drives. He got them down to good spots. And they're a team that has the run game. They've learned to, get better with their weapons as the season's gone on. Hopefully Roma Dunes is able to play against the Packers this Sunday. And if he does, and they have Luther Burden and DJ Moore and Manungai and DeAndre Swift and Caleb Williams playing quarterback, that's a damn good offense. Their defense allows a ton of points, but they are also the best team in football at creating turnovers. And if you have a run game, if you have the ability to create turnovers and you had a quarterback that can make plays for you, you can win the Super Bowl. That's all you really need. So Chicago moves up 4 spots despite back-to-back losses because I think they are set up to be a really good playoff team. Number 4.
All right, number 4, I am going with the New England Patriots. The Pats may not have the bye. They may not have a top 5 defense, but I like the balance of this Patriots team way more than Denver. If Bo Nix has to throw 40 times in a playoff game, it's probably not going to end well, while the same with New England with Drake May likely means they're blowing somebody out. So I'm going to trust him and Mike Vrabel, unfortunately, as a Jets fan, a little more than Denver.
Yeah, New England's my number 4 team as well, too. They're the steady Eddie of the AFC, I would say. They have a quarterback that you can trust. They have a run game that you can believe in as well, too. Defense isn't great, but it is good enough in a lot of scenarios. And I think their offense outweighs other teams' offenses enough that they will be fine in a lot of playoff matchups. So New England, I have at number 4. Is Drake May the MVP? I don't know.
Maybe.
I honestly don't know. He could be, but he's good enough that New England can make a run, and I don't think anybody would be surprised by it. Number 3.
The Jacksonville Jaguars. Here we are. Jacksonville is on fire right now, and they get a home game. Massive for them. Trevor Lawrence is looking like the second half MVP this season. They have a filthy defense. They just won a game at Denver, their only loss at home. Very, very good vibes for Jacksonville.
Jacksonville's my number 3 team as well, too. This is the same spot they were at the last time that we did this, so I've been a believer in Jacksonville for a little bit now. Trevor Lawrence has been the MVP of the league in the last 7 weeks. That's undeniable. Ever since they got Jacoby Myers, that offense has changed. ETN and Bashal Tootin make a great run game that has the ability to punch in at the goal line as well too. Trevor Lawrence's playmaking ability off schedule, running the football down at the goal line is very Josh Allen like. And this is the first time that we've really seen him go into that mode in his career, which is cool to see. And their defense has gotten better with time. And I think is up there with, I don't know if I'd say the Texans and the Broncos, but up to, head to head with New England, easy. Up to head with Philly, easy. Like, I think it makes sense there. And I think it's good enough that they can be legitimately the best team in the AFC. So Jacksonville, number 3 for me. Number 2.
Yeah, things get a lot simpler for us based off of the teams we just talked about. I got the Rams still at the number 2 spot. When I watch the rest of the NFC, I just do not see the same kind of firepower that the Rams have, specifically that Seattle Niners game. I'm like, man, if the Rams were playing in Santa Clara right now, they might have 45 points. Stafford, Puka, Adams, Kyron Williams, they just need to play a little bit of defense, and they're going to get their rematch.
Rams are my number 2 team as well, too. The game against the Falcons, I'm kind of just throwing out. Matthew Stafford threw 3 picks. I know that's, normally alarming, but Matthew Stafford has had enough good games in his career and this season alone that I can be like, okay, it was just a bad game. Some rough stuff happened. But if Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams are playing for them come Sunday, like, this is the team that is so tough to beat just because of their sure firepower on offense. That's not even mentioning a defense that has had some really good moments, has a ton of name power, I'd say, on the defensive side. Probably 8 guys that you can name off that defense that could be Pro Bowler type aspect guys. I know actually they have like one of the worst special teams units, so maybe that comes back to bite them, and maybe that's something that we're ignoring with them, putting them at the 2 spot. But the Rams are legit, and I think if they make a Super Bowl run, they win it, nobody's going to be shocked because just them and Philly are the only 2 teams in this playoffs that have the quarterback head coach duo that have won a Super Bowl before with that team. That means there's just one spot left on our top 14 rankings. The number one seed in the NFC as well, too, the Seattle Seahawks.
Seattle, man, coming off a defensive masterclass against the Niners to get that first round bye. If they can run the ball, they've been unstoppable. And it most likely comes down to Sam Darnold if they can't get to the NFC Championship game. That's the only issue I have here. And Sam Darnold has played fantastic this season, but he always scares you just a little bit in these close games.
Yeah, Seattle's number 1, of course. Although, and I think in a different year, like if you were to compare us to last year, I think Seattle would be number 3 behind Philly and Kansas City. Even if you're just looking at this exact team, how things have gone, I don't think they're as good as the number 1 seeds that we've had in a lot of previous years. There's holes with this team. Sam Darnold has 20 turnovers. You don't see a lot of 1 seed quarterbacks have that many. But as we've seen recently, they just haven't had to rely on them because Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet have been one of the best running back duos in the league the past 5 weeks. They have the receiving crown leader, Jackson Smith-Njigba, who's been dominant. And they have a defense that will hit you hard, knock you down, and they won't help you back up because they do a lot of good things well. They attack the football in the run game. They attack the football in the pass game as well, too. And they really – it doesn't even come down to what Sam Darnold was playing like. He can have 4 picks and still be a missed field goal away from winning the football game. So if he plays good in any of these games, I don't think there's a chance that they lose. So that's why they're number 1. I don't know what to say besides that. Like, it's not because of Sam Darnold that they're the 1 seed, because of all the other things, but he really doesn't have to be that good in order for them to win a game. They just held the Niners, who've been averaging like 40 points over the past month and a half, to 3 points, and Brock Purdy almost died like 4 times during that game. It was easy for that defense. It really was, and we haven't seen a team do that to the Niners in a long time. All right, it's time for the playoff bracket predictions, the full in-depth NFL playoff preview, as we like to say. We'll start off in the AFC. We'll go all the way through the AFC, pick a Super Bowl pennant winner, I guess if you could say, from the AFC side, and then we'll do the NFC. That way things don't stay confusing. Starting off Wild Card Weekend 5 versus 4. This game's on Monday night. It's the last game of Wild Card Weekend, but we're picking it first. Houston at Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I'm going to take Houston as the 5 seed here. It's always a very popular pick. I guess specifically Vegas, right? With the 5 going to the 4. It's just a situation where I don't trust Pittsburgh. They got lucky, man. There's no other way to put it. They got lucky. Houston has not lost in 2 months.
Yeah, Houston's been one of the best teams in football over the past 2 months, 3 months at this point. Their defense is legitimate. Pittsburgh, I don't want to say they got lucky getting into a playoff spot. They really did, though. At the end of the day, and even with DK Metcalf coming back, I don't think there is too many scenarios that they do win this football game. So Houston, I don't think it's a blowout by any means, because I just don't think Houston's really capable of having a blowout because of CJ Stroud limiting himself. But I'd say it's a low-scoring game. There's a reason why the over-under's at 39.5 right now. But I say Houston wins like a 16-10 football game. 6 versus 3 is Sunday morning. I hate that they put this game Sunday morning because I do think it is the best football game of the weekend. Buffalo goes into Jacksonville. We actually saw this matchup a long time ago. It was, I want to say it's Blake Bortles versus Tyrod Taylor, and it's one of the worst football games in a playoff matchup that I've ever watched. Now we should be set up with one of the best football games that we've ever watched. What do you think about this one, Skyler?
This is going to be spectacular. So many fireworks. And I mentioned it earlier. I think Jacksonville being at home for this game is a massive deal. And that's why I picked them. What Jacksonville does the best out of everything is stopping the run. That is going to fuck with Josh Allen. That's going to mess with the offensive line, and specifically James Cook, the X factor. I get, even though he's been paid and is a well-known guy now, that's what everything revolves around with Buffalo, because they don't have these big guys that they trust. Like, they have Keon Coleman, but they're not going to throw to him more than 4 times a game, and they're going to have to if they go down against Jacksonville and that crazy pass rush. So I did it, man. I picked Jacksonville.
Yeah, this is honestly a great matchup for Jacksonville. Buffalo's defense isn't good. What Buffalo wants to do is run the football, and Jacksonville's run defense is debatably one of the top 2 or 3 in the league. They haven't, they've played good running backs, Jonathan Taylor, twice on their schedule, and they bottle them up both times. So if they can't do running the football for Buffalo, I don't want to say it'll get ugly, because Josh Allen will always keep him in games, but I could see Jacksonville winning this one by 2 possessions if it really comes down to it. I say the Jags win this one. Obviously, it being in Jacksonville helps as well too. I think that dictates more of the game flow rather than playing in cold, possibly snowy Buffalo. I don't know what the weather is going to be like this weekend, but it definitely ain't 80 and sunny like it is in Jacksonville. That's for sure. So I'll go Jacksonville wins this one by 14 points. Sunday night, the Chargers visit the Patriots. Kind of an old school, I don't say old school, but mid-2000s type of game feel to it with these two teams. How do you think this one plays out?
I think the Chargers just come out a little too slow in this one. I think, and I won't spoil anything that I think you're about to say, so I won't say it. But I do think this game is going to have its fair share of fireworks too. The defenses have been trending downwards, even though there are some big names. It comes down to the O-line, man. The Chargers, I just do not trust right now as a 7 seed. Going to Foxborough too, that's a long way. So I took the Patriots. It's such a weird matchup, though, like you said. So go ahead. Tell me what you think.
Yeah, this is a weird game, and I do think it's a good draw for the Chargers. Patriots pass rush, isn't anything crazy. Their defense overall isn't anything crazy. Obviously, the biggest thing I'd say for the Patriots on defense is Christian Gonzalez, and he will lock down your number one. But the Chargers don't really have a number one. They have a bunch of really solid guys that you can throw the football to and use as options, even in the run game with Amarion Hampton. I do think this game plays well into the Chargers' hand here, especially also on the defensive side. This is not a shot at Drake May, but the Chargers' defense is really good at limiting what they give you. They don't give up a ton of big plays. I know they did against the Texans, and that's why they lost. They allowed 2 big plays early in the game. That was it. But against teams in general, They make you earn every single hard yard. And I think maybe the second year quarterback, his first playoff start, can get a little antsy and get into a spot where he, tries to make a play that he shouldn't and changes how things go in this game. Although Drake May has played like an MVP this year, and I'm saying that won't happen. I'm just saying it could happen. I do think there's some points put up in this game. I think it's, like I said, Patriots defense isn't good enough to slow down the Chargers offense. But I do think New England will be well prepared. So I'll go New England wins this one. But I do think the spread is pretty good there at 3.5. On to the AFC divisional round. We have the same two matchups here. Houston at Denver to start. How does this play out?
This is going to be the ugliest game of this round, I think. I'm thinking like an 18-16 type of game. And both sides have experience in this type of game, but the Broncos have just come out on top more often than not when they're at home. So I am going to take them here. Like I said, I mean, things could get really ugly for Denver. Like they had a game where they had negative yards against the Jets going into the half, but they figured it out. They can win the ugly game. If they could keep this one close, if CJ Stroud is more conservative, like we saw him in last year's playoffs, I think Denver will beat them.
This is an interesting game. It's going to be a game that is going to suck and also be really good at the exact same time because just random things can happen. I'd say there's probably going to be a defensive touchdown scored at some point in this game, and that might be the only touchdown in the entire game. I think both these quarterbacks are guys that can completely get stifled by these defenses, even though they've played each other this year. The run game isn't specifically better, by a ton on each side, but I did give Houston that edge earlier, and that's the reason why I'm giving them the edge here at Denver. I say they win a very close game, like 15-14, 15-12, 15-11, add in a safety, some scoregami type of game that Houston wins ugly fashion because I think that's what Houston needs to play in order to win these games, and that's what they get. So Houston, number 5 seed, moves on to the AFC Championship. The other game, former playoff matchup that we saw back in 2018, 2019, Jacksonville goes into New England. Obviously, these two teams are completely different now. How do you think this one plays out?
Yeah, I remember watching that AFC Championship game, and it was right after I broke my arm. I fell asleep. I slept, and I woke up, and I saw it was like 26-6. And I was like, shit. But I don't think it's going to be like that at all. I think we're going to have a crazy offensive game here, despite defensive-minded people all around these two organizations. And you know what, man? New England just hasn't played that tough of a schedule. I am not going to pick them to go to the AFC Championship game. I don't think they're as experienced, shockingly, you might say, as this Jaguars roster is right now. So I'm going to take the Jaguars on the road. I know Foxborough is a really tough place to play, but Jacksonville has got a lot of experience this year playing in tough places and getting the job done, man. And sometimes you got to win ugly.
Yeah. Both these defenses really good at stopping the run. I will say that. But the pass game is a little bit more vulnerable on both sides. I do think both teams lean this way. I do think the Jags have a bit of a better passing attack over the last 7 weeks, I'd say. And the defense leans to the Jags as well, too. I think this would be a great game. This is one of those games that has the ability to set up the trajectory of the AFC for the next 5 years. I know it's, maybe you put, I don't want to say an asterisk, but you could put a little bit like around this year because there is no Mahomes, there is no Lamar, there is no Joe Burrow in the playoffs. But this Jags-Patriots game has a lot of meaning for the future of the league. It's a couple of, I don't know if you could say young quarterbacks with Trevor Lawrence now at this point in like his 4th or 5th year. But I said the Jags win this one. They move to the AFC Championship and set up an AFC South AFC Championship, which is just crazy to say. AFC Championship for you, though, is a matchup that we've already seen. Jacksonville into Denver. How does this play out here?
Man, Mile High is a really tough place to play. Tom Brady had a very hard time playing there even, and that's the greatest postseason quarterback ever. But we've already seen it. Like you said, man, Jacksonville just does not care. They've won in Denver. And like you said, there's no rules in these playoffs. You could do whatever you want because there's no guaranteed Hall of Fame quarterback standing in the way of anybody right now. So I did it. I picked Jacksonville again on the road. I just could not see Denver. Even if this is a great matchup for them, a rematch for their defense at home, bad weather, I don't care. I picked Jacksonville because I just want to see it. This is the most explosive team in the AFC right now.
My matchup, Houston at Jacksonville. Obviously, these teams have played twice this year, although I'm going to throw both these games out. First one, 3 games into the season. Obviously, these teams were a whole lot different. Texans were 0-3. They were figuring a lot of stuff out. They had no run game. Trevor Lawrence was still on the other side, a guy that was turning over the football a ton. And then their most recent matchup was probably 8 to 9 weeks ago now at this point as well, too. Davis Mills put up 36 against the Jags defense. That was a crazy game
That's
as
true.
well, too. They lose. Trevor Lawrence only threw for 158 passing yards. But since that moment, Trevor Lawrence has turned it on. This was the first game that they had Jacoby Myers, so they really limited him in his snaps. I think Jacoby was hurt the week prior for the Raiders as well, too, so he wasn't 100% healthy. Since then, things have changed. Jacksonville's been able to put up, I don't have the stats, but I assume the most points in the NFL since that game. 35, 27, 25, 36, 48, 34, 23, 41, respectively in each game. I think their offense is good enough to go up against any team. We saw them put up 34 points against the Broncos. I think they could put up 34 points against the Texans. And I just don't think Houston's offense is capable of doing that against Jacksonville's defense right now. So Super Bowl representative in the AFC for me is Trevor Lawrence and the Jacksonville Jaguars.
I thought I was crazy putting this together today, so I'm glad we're on a similar page so far.
Yeah. NFC wild card. Maybe things get crazier here. 5 versus 4 is actually the first game that we see in the playoffs. So maybe we should have started with the NFC. But the Rams visiting the Panthers, a game that we've already seen before this season. The Rams are 10.5-point favorites. How do you think this plays out?
Yeah, I don't think they beat them by 28 or anything, but the Rams should be able to completely shut down Carolina because Carolina couldn't do anything against Tampa, and that is a very badly struggling defense over the last year even. So the Rams are going to win.
Yeah, I said the Rams win as well, too. I don't know if I want to, be super disrespectful. I feel like the line is disrespectful to the Panthers. I'll say that. I don't know if they cover, but I do think the Rams win comfortably in this one. One of those backdoor covers by Carolina maybe, but the Rams win. I don't think the Panthers really have that much of a chance to take down the Rams in a playoff setting. 3 versus 6, a playoff matchup that we've seen a ton over the last 5 to 6 years. The Niners go into Philly, a fun one, and I think it's fair to say it's a bit of a rivalry now, even though guys like Deebo Samuel have left it.
Yeah, I agree. This was one I've had kind of on my calendar for the last half of the season, as I really wanted to see Philly and San Francisco again. I picked the Eagles. They're going back to Philly. I know they got their issues, but San Francisco's got far more to worry about, in my opinion. If they can't get the ball to Christian McCaffrey, they're toast, no matter who they're playing. If they were playing the Chargers, if they, got flipped over to the AFC for whatever reason, I'd have an issue taking San Francisco against anybody in this tournament this year.
This is, in my opinion, probably the biggest toss-up of the first round. I could see this game going either way. I could see the Niners destroying Philly. I could see the Philly destroying the Niners. I could see it being a close game on both sides. Biggest thing for me, if Trent Williams and George Kittle are playing, I think the Niners do win this game. There's a lot more question marks on Philly's side of the ball. San Francisco, if they have George Kittle, Brock Purdy's been amazing. When that happens, it helps the run game as well, too. And Christian McCaffrey is a guy I trust. He's got more rushing yards than Saquon this year as well, too. I know that doesn't really mean anything, but regardless, I'll go with the Niners here in an upset. Not by a ton. I do think this game is close. Maybe a walk-off field goal from Eddie Pinheiro, who's been great this year. Maybe that plays a factor into it. Jake Elliott missing a ton of kicks this year could mean something. But I have the Niners winning this game as an upset, as a 6 seed. 7 versus 2 divisional matchup. This one's fun. Green Bay Packers going to Chicago. How does this one play?
Yeah, this should be a great game, too. Definitely some Denver Houston vibes with this matchup too. I could see a game that ends up being 22-20, but I am going to stick with the Bears at home. There's too many issues with Green Bay. And we know one thing Chicago doesn't struggle with this season is running the ball with both of their great running backs. So the Bears are just going to try to milk the clock the entire 60 minutes, I think.
Uh, a lot of people said when this game happened a couple of weeks ago that the Bears only won because no Jordan Love, no Josh Jacobs, no Tucker Kraft. I think Christian Watson even got hurt in this game. But also, Chicago didn't have Rome Odunze or Luther Burden. He was thrown to Jade Walker, Alameda Zacchaeus, and DJ Moore. And they still won. I think this game, team's hopefully more healthy. I still think Josh Jacobs is banged up enough that he's not going to be 100%. Even if it's Malik Willis going or something, I'd say the Bears win. I don't think it's a convincing victory, but I do think they win, in a game that feels like it's theirs the way through. So Chicago moves on to the next round, which sets up NFC divisional round, a bit different for us here. You have the Rams at Seattle to start, right? Yeah,
yes,
so we'll
sir.
go there.
All right. Unfortunately, this will not be the NFC Championship game for me because that would be such an awesome game. We just get it a week earlier. And, I don't know if that changes anything for me. But one thing I do know is the Rams have got to be absolutely pissed about what happened in the last time they played Seattle. So I did it. I picked the Rams on the road. The kind of playmakers they have, it just completely surpasses Seattle, in my opinion. And I think they can play the time of possession game too with the Rams. It's probably not as good as Seattle, but they got more firepower. I had to do it. I stuck with my midseason pick. I think the Rams beat Seattle in a rematch.
6-1 is what I have here. I have the Niners going into Seattle. Matchup we've already seen happen in week 1. So I'm throwing it a bit out. I'm not really looking at stuff from week 1 as what's going to affect week 20 matchups. So scratch it. These two teams just played a week ago. There's no George Kittle, no Trent Williams. So maybe you can scratch that one as well too. But I don't think Brock Purdy's going to forget the feeling that he had in this game against Seattle a couple weeks ago. I don't think Christian McCaffrey's going to forget about the run game that was struggling in this one. I don't think Kyle Shanahan's going to forget about it either. And I don't think the Niners defense is good enough to consistently stop Sam Darnold in this run game that we saw just a couple weeks ago. So I have Seattle winning this one. It's in Seattle as well too, which helps. So Seattle moves on to the NFC Championship game. Now in the NFC divisional game for you, the second one is Philly at Chicago.
Yes,
right?
sir.
All right. How does that one go?
So obviously we saw this one a couple of months ago, and the Bears ran all over Philly. But after one of the games we talked about today, right? Philly going into Buffalo, terrible weather, and completely shutting them down. I'm sticking with Philly. This is the kind of game I think, even if you don't love Philly, this is the kind of game you have to win if you don't want guys to get fired. They won 13-12 in Buffalo. Chicago is not as scary of a place to play. It's probably not going to be snowing. Jake Elliott actually was perfect in that game against Buffalo, and their red zone defense completely shut down Josh Allen. I'm taking Philly, even though I don't love their team. I think it's a good matchup.
Yeah, I have a fun matchup here, NFC divisional round. The Rams at Chicago. This feels very similar to like a Niners against Chicago game that we saw on Sunday night a couple weeks ago. I do think that game has, I don't know if we're getting 42-38, but I do think we get a pretty similar type of feel in that game where it's back and forth track meet. Stafford's good enough to put up 4 touchdowns, 350 yards against the Bears defense. Chicago's good enough to run the football with 100 for both their running backs and get some big plays from Luther Burden, DJ Moore, Roman Dunes. I say Chicago's defense, though, is going to get 1 or 2 interceptions that Matthew Stafford's been prone to in the second half of the season that sways the game, maybe a pick 6, and is good enough to win this game. This is all happening if it's I don't know, say 25 degrees and sunny. If it's 0 and hailing or snowing, whatever it may be, I don't know what's going to happen. This is just my theoretical world. I say that the Bears move on to the NFC Championship game, which sets up Chicago at Seattle for me. Give me your NFC Championship game and who's going to the Super Bowl.
Yes, sir. I have the Rams going to Philadelphia. So Philadelphia hosts another one of these games despite a down year. And we've seen this matchup too, again this year, just like most of these teams. It feels like if you played in one of the best games of the year, you made the playoffs. Philly beat them. But the Rams were up 26-7 in that game after this loss in Philadelphia. That is what kicked Matt Stafford into gear, I think. That's when the MVP conversation started. And I think this is a completely new Rams team since whatever it was, week 4 when they played each other. So I do not think Philadelphia is going back to the Super Bowl. It's going to be the winner of that NFC West game, I think. So I picked the Rams to go to the Super Bowl. If you're not sure, it's the quarterback and the coach combination, man. And they have way less to worry about than Philadelphia or Chicago or the Niners.
I do think it's interesting before I get into my prediction that we talk about the AFC being this conference of so much difference this year, yet we picked the exact same team. We talk about the NFC, how there's kind of a lot of the same players as the previous years, but we have the two different teams here in the NFC Championship game, which is interesting. I have 2 versus 1, Chicago at Seattle, and I think it's a similar script to the Rams, but even more so. I think Sam Darnold could put up a good stat line, but we've seen him be prone to turnovers, and the team that gets the most turnovers in the league is Chicago. On the other side of the football, Caleb Williams might be seeing ghosts in this game. I don't really know. Playing in Seattle, this is going to be the biggest test of your heart, your spirits as a football team. But one thing that we know about Ben Johnson and his team is that the guys are bought in. They are fully together as a squad. And I think being bought in and fully together isn't good enough to win the NFC Championship game. But I do think it helps here against Seattle because I do think they are the better team, especially on offense in this game. And I think their defense is good enough to outweigh Seattle's stinginess by Chicago's timeliness. So I say Chicago wins the NFC, which sets up a Jacksonville versus Chicago Super Bowl. You have the Rams versus Jacksonville.
Yes, sir.
So give me your Super Bowl. Give me your Super Bowl MVP. And what's going on here.
All right, Jacksonville and the Rams. I think if this happened, this would also be a very, very high-scoring matchup. And it's not that there's bad defenses here. It's just a different level of offense based off of what we've seen in the second half of the season with these two clubs. I picked the Rams. I think this game would have a very similar vibe to the Rams beating Joe Burrow a couple of years ago. Young offensive mind trying to make a statement, and Sean McVay just knows exactly what to do to counter every single move the Jaguars could possibly have here. And I feel the same way about Denver, too, if they happen to win out, because they have the 1 seed, of course. So, Devontae Adams would be an interesting pick here. If we're talking about not even a surprise here, but that's your red zone guy. If Devontae Adams caught 3 touchdowns, he might win the MVP. But the safe play is to go with Matt Stafford. He's the MVP this season, I think, in my opinion. And he gets the job done here for the second time, maybe riding off into the sunset even too after this.
Interesting. My Super Bowl is not the blue blood Super Bowl that we're used to. It feels like in the last 25 years of the NFL. Jacksonville versus Chicago in Santa Clara. Trevor Lawrence versus Caleb Williams, hopefully bearing injuries. This is a fun matchup because I do think this is two teams that we've seen get a whole lot better throughout the season and really figure out their identity. And I think if you go throughout the entire teams of the playoffs, these are two teams that really have their identity figured out of what they want to do on offense and what they want to do on defense. I just think Jacksonville's been so good recently that I don't think that they are going to lose a game against a defense that allows a ton of yards. And I know Chicago's really good at creating turnovers, but Trevor Lawrence, who's been prone to turnovers, has not been in the last 8 weeks. He's been so good at keeping the football in Jacksonville's hands. And on the other side, Jacksonville's run defense against Chicago, if Chicago can't run the football and they get it into a lot of 3rd and longs, I think Jacksonville's defense wins out more than Caleb Williams and Ben Johnson's play calling on the offensive side. So I have Jacksonville winning the Super Bowl here. Super Bowl MVP sleeper here could be ETN because he could be a guy that has 150 touchdown through the air and through the ground. We've seen Ashton Genty, Christian McCaffrey, a whole bunch of guys have really good games against the Bears on the ground. But I did go Trevor Lawrence. I assume he runs one in. I assume he's probably going to have to throw for 3 touchdowns in this game as well, too. So Trevor Lawrence, Super Bowl MVP, as the Jacksonville Jaguars host their first Lombardi.
Man, I forgot to mention it. This game is in Santa Clara. There are 3 teams from the NFC West in that bracket. So if any of them do happen to make it, like in my scenario, they know every single spot of that field. If that is a thing that people care about. I don't know. I don't play in the NFL. I'm not sure.
Yeah, the turf at the 35-yard line is actually a little bit softer, so you can run some end arounds over there. Who knows though? That might actually be a thing. We don't, like you said, we don't play in the NFL. We just make fun of it. So, anyways, moving on. We got about 12 minutes, I think, left in timing here. So we got a little bit. Transfer portal's been nuts, and Skyler has some stuff here.
There are 4,000 players in the transfer portal right now, Kyle. 4,000. This is the craziest shit I've ever seen in college football history. Can you imagine? I asked my dad this the other day. I know I'm ranting right when you said we have a limited amount of time, but you got to hear this. How pissed is Reggie Bush? He's like, dude, they took my Heisman and I only made $200K.
Or Money Manziel for getting scandals on him when he could have just been making all this money legally.
Exactly. But anyways, let's get right through this. A couple of big names have signed. The top 2 have not, though. Sam Levitt, Cam Coleman, 5-star receiver. They're still out in the open. Maybe next week we'll figure it out. But let's talk about the guys who have signed. Drew Mestamaker from North Texas, the young quarterback. He's going to Oklahoma State. That's where his coach is going. They also got Coleman Hawkins, elite North Texas running back, also going there. They're going to have a good offense in the Big 12 next year, which is going to be fun. But they're going to have to beat Texas Tech, who just got a new quarterback. That's Brendan Sorsby. A lot was hinting at this. It was either Texas Tech or LSU who's going to bring out the massive paycheck for this guy. And it's the type of quarterback who probably would have went in the second round, maybe Tyler Shuck-ish to his game. Big guy, big runner, big arm. Just got to figure out the touch. So interested to see how he looks at Texas Tech. Another very fun quarterback is Byron Brown. He is, in fact, going from South Florida to Auburn. That's where his coach ended up going. Get some film in the SEC, maybe get a look in the NFL. Either way, I would love to see them beat Alabama. That'd be sick. Dylan Raiola is another quarterback that still hasn't made a decision. I heard LSU last week, but apparently they got another guy from Ohio State. So this could be Oregon, maybe. Coy Parrish hit the portal. We didn't talk about this last week. It was kind of a late ad. Coy Parrish used to be a 2-way player at Minnesota. Now is focusing on playing defense. That nickel position has turned into such an important factor of NFL defenses that this is going to be a guy to watch over the next year. Another quarterback headed to Indiana to replace your guy Mendoza is Josh Hoover from TCU. We talked about him a little bit. Not a lot of people know about him, but this was the guy getting the big time offers. Indiana, LSU, Alabama. He chooses the Hoosiers. So good for him. We're still waiting on DJ Lagway. Maybe not as much money as he thought he would get. And Rocco Becht. That was the other one. I forgot about him. Rocco Becht is going Iowa State to Penn State. I told you last week, I thought he should sign right away to Penn State. Pro style. It's his coach, Matt Campbell. So far, so good. It's going to be really hard to keep track of this in a month from now. But while we can, I thought we would talk about some of the bigger names real quick in the show.
Yeah. A couple notes. Hoover to Indiana. He's got a ton of experience as well starting already. So I think that'll help him in the Big 12. He hasn't played against a ton of Big 12 defenses, maybe zero. But still, I do think that experience helps him. Sorsby to Texas Tech. Texas Tech could have been a team that fizzles out after this 1-year run of getting to the college football playoff. They now feel very SEC-like, I'd say. In the Big 12, that does not feel at all very SEC-like. So I think you can pencil them in as probably winners of the Big 12 again next year. Sam Levitt feels very LSU-y to me. I know there's nothing confirmed yet, but I know he did have a visit there, I want to say, on Monday. So maybe that's looming. But just the vibe from Sam Levitt feels like he's a guy that would thrive at LSU with Lane Kiffin.
100%.
Moving on, though, MLB offseason notables, a pretty slow week as well. Not a ton of big fish signing. Kyle Tucker's market has slowed down. It feels like Alex Bregman has slowed down. It's been a really weird offseason because usually everybody waits until these big signees sign, and then from there, everything trickles in. You know your market. It feels like everybody has signed except for like the five biggest names that we've had with Bellinger, Bregman, Kyle Tucker, and so forth. Um, Not a ton of moves this week. Like I said, New Year's Day, we did get a couple starting pitchers, though. Tyler Mahle, 1 year deal with the Giants. Tetsuya Mai, the big time starter coming over from Japan. I think he gets like 3 for 60 or something like that. Not that big of a contract. I'm surprised more teams weren't in on him at that money. But he chooses to go with the Houston Astros, not the Texans, if I said that.
No, you're good.
The second, we didn't really get anything. The third, we got Katsuma Akamoto going on a 4 year deal to the Toronto Blue Jays. This is a guy I had picked to the A's. Turns out the A's were never really looking in his direction, which kind of sucks. Maybe he just didn't want to go there either. But the Blue Jays hit again. They have a ton of different pieces. I feel like a lot of people are forgetting that they still have Anthony Santander as well too. He had a rough year last year, but if he goes back to being 40 homer Santander, and the Blue Jays maybe even sign Kyle Tucker or Alex Bregman, like they can seriously run it back in the AL. And I didn't really think there's a possibility of that even just a couple months ago in the AL. Paul DeJong, minor league contract with the Yankees. He's a guy that could potentially see some big league time if McMahon or who's playing second for them now at this point. Jazz. Jazz isn't playing. Maybe first base as well too. I think is a little bit of a interesting spot there. Ben Rice, Austin Wells scenario. Who knows there? But he's probably 26th, 27th type guy on an MLB roster. The fifth, Big Christmas, claimed off of waivers from the Guardians, goes to the Baltimore Orioles. Still only 24 years old. Definitely has some issues, a lot of swing and miss, but obviously some big time power that we've seen at big moments, even in the playoffs. Justin Henry Malloy, talked about him last week. I want to say he gets acquired from the Tigers when he was on waivers to the Tampa Bay Rays. They always seem to do stuff with that, so could be interesting there. And nothing really else besides that. It's been a very slow week. Hopefully, like I said, we get some of the bigger fish signing because those are the guys that have the ability to turn a team into a pretender to a contender, or contender to a World Series contender. So we'll see where those guys go. But the markets have slowed down pretty much.
We know they're not really worried about the clock after last year of like, oh, we got to get this deal done. But it seems like it's that time of year where we're finally going to see some bigger stuff here next week.
Yeah, let's hope. Yeah. Last week, though, for the bold predictions, layups. Let's get into those layups. I had Buffalo -7 versus the Jets. That did hit. I did not think Josh Allen was going to be out, but regardless, it still works. Skyler had UGA -6.5 versus Ole Miss. Ole Miss wins outright in a bit of a shocker there, so that one goes red. I had UGA money on them as well too, so that sucks. This week I have New England versus the Chargers over 46.5. I don't think this game turns into a necessary shootout where we see 40 points from each team, but I do think each team getting to 25 is reasonable, and that gets you to 50. So I took the over there.
All right, similar strategy with my layup here. I didn't want to pick a team outright since there's only a few teams left. Fiesta Bowl, Ole Miss, Miami. I'm going to take the under 52.5. We talked about this game, 40 minutes ago, but recap, Chambliss is great. I have to apologize to him. He's not a 7th-round pick if he does come out. He's a little better than that now, but I'm still taking the under. These defenses are a very underrated part of the team.
Last week, bold predictions. I had Carolina money line close, but it does not happen because Rico Dowdle and the Panthers try to do a flea flicker in the pouring rain, which is one of the dumbest things I've seen. So that goes red. Skyler had Green Bay +235 and quite possibly the worst bet of the season. I jokingly said Clayton Tune will start this game last week when you said this, and he did start the game. He had like 35 passing yards. So that obviously goes red, but week 18 is always a very frustrating week to bet on, or a very good week to bet on based off of how lucky you are. This week, I have Jacksonville versus Chicago money line as a parlay because both of these teams are like about even odds right now. I saw odds for the Super Bowl for these two is like plus 6,500. So throw $10 on it if you can. I don't think that's a bad bet at all.
Are you going to?
We can't because I don't have the ability to do that in California.
You're
So
right.
if I had a sports book that
I've
allowed
been
me,
out
I
of the
would.
game for too long.
But I would. Unfortunately, I can't. Maybe I got to get to Arizona soon, but who knows? But that's my parlay money line there, Jacksonville, Chicago.
All right. My bold prediction is going to be a player prop. Something I haven't done often, but kind of playoff season is when I bring it back. DK Metcalf, anytime touchdown, plus 210. This is what I said on my Steelers power ranking talk was if they're going to do anything at all in this postseason, they got to throw the ball to DK Metcalf a ton. So I have anytime touchdown DK Metcalf. I thought 210 was way higher than your normal wide receiver one on a playoff team. The other guys are like, minus 100 for Swift touchdown or a Dunze or something like that. So I went with DK.
That's going to do it for episode 276. Next week, 277, we'll know the national championship of who's going to be playing there. We will know who's in the divisional round for the NFL matchups there. That'll be fun. Hopefully MLB signings. We'll talk more about NFL head coaches and maybe those openings there and what happens. But yeah, we'll talk to you guys then. Episode 277 next week.
We'll see you next week. Let's go Dante Moore, huh?